I'm Alex Del Sordo, and over the weekend, we have had some comments made by the former owner of Resolute. And I had a friend reach out, someone that I've known for 10 years, maybe more. I've coached against him, I've supported him, he's supported me. And we talked about this, and it was a heartbreaking moment for rowing, but also for the world. And we wanted to use today's platform to address this. So today with me, I have Patrick Johnson and I have Barry Holman. And Patrick and I, as I stated before, we've known each other for 10 years. Um, we have worked with each other at all levels. I look up to Patrick, and he has been a guiding light in some of these movements in the last couple of weeks for us. We've gone to him for a lot of advice and direction. He has won, and I want to make sure that I got this right, Patrick. You won the Isabel Bone Award in 2019, which is very powerful. It's a U.S. Rowing Award. You've been in rowing for more than 20 years, and you're an advocate of rowing. Barry, you are the co-founder and president of AWL. As I stated earlier before the call here, I've only known you for 10 seconds. In today's platform, we're going to get to know you a little bit, but really, I'm going to stop talking here. Patrick, Barry, I want to hear from you about these comments that were made, but also what has been going on in the rowing world, specifically in the last couple of weeks. So, Patrick, Barry, thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this. And I open the floor to you, Patrick.
Thank you. First, I just want to say thank you to Alex, and thank you, Roar's Choice and Resolute and Sykes, for listening, for being really the first to listen. I will say that I'm very disappointed that our national governing body isn't the first to make this happen. I'm going to be very clear on that. I'm very disappointed in U.S. rowing. I've had one of the things that helps, I think, when you are, something happens in any organization, in anybody, in any family, is to be listened to. I have been listened to by Chris Chase. I will call names because I'm beyond being nice. And I appreciate him reaching out and talking the last couple of days when I have been really personally hurting, personally attacked. But unfortunately, I've had questions more than listening from others. And I just want to read and clarify why we're here. So on my Facebook page, I posted a educational thing that a friend posted. One of the things that I felt very strongly in the situation that's been going on is that there's a lot of people who feel like, why are Blacks so trying to change history? And me growing up as a 51-year-old African-American man, my grandmother raised me, and she worked in the rich white family's house in my hometown. She was called a nigger many times. And I'll say that word because some of you need to hear it because we hear it. And so I grew up feeling and have always felt that. I've always, been that Black guy, and a lot of us have. So when we look at history and we talk about American history, the thing that I've asked and have been hoping for by a lot of my Facebook posts was that people will take a second and read some of the history that we don't have in our history books, and just, really open their ears to say, let me actually listen and not be defensive about, oh, why are they turning these down, or why are they doing that? And maybe start feeling that, like, how does this make you feel? An analogy that a friend made, and this was pretty harsh, but this was a female friend who had experienced sexual trauma. She said, how would you feel if somebody in your family raped you, but their picture was hanging in your house for the rest of your life? And it was like, oh, that's a part of our history. We wouldn't do that. And that's how my grandmother felt about a statue in my hometown. That's how I feel about a lot of things. So I can only say that a million times, but I chose to say, let me help educate. Let me post some of the things. And one of the posts I made, which has been passed around a lot, was just more some other history. Like, did you know that Helen Keller instead of, did you learn about Helen Keller instead of W.B. Du Bois, and blah, blah, blah. There's several other examples of African Americans in our US history that have done things. After posting that, a gentleman, former owner of Resolute, the current owner of Resolute Adaptive, replied and shut up already, stop talking and do whatever, but stop talking and telling people what they should do. And this is the part that really hits me personally. This is the part that hurts the most. You and your descendants have done nothing, so just shut up. So I just want to focus in on that. You and your descendants have done nothing. So I'm going to say, everybody out there who is trying to justify this, some of you with US rowing staff who have really disappointed me, who are trying to say, oh, he wasn't talking to you. You and your descendants, just read that. And for me, it's, I mean, I feel broken the last couple of days. And
Patrick, I'm sorry I'm not, I'm sorry I'm a continent away and not there to just be able to be your friend and put my arms around you.
Thank you. And personally, I feel that way. But when I've gone and talked to some of my college rowers, some of my high school rowers, some of my friends who are youngsters, and seen and heard how they're hurting right now, that's what really is tearing me up. We look at the example of what happened with US gymnastics. So many people spoke out. So many people spoke out. But the system protected people. And this is very different, but it's very much the same, because to me, this situation, this subject is a prime example of how are we listening? Like, what does it take? Do you guys know that like 2 years ago, a little black girl in a boat at Stotesbury had one of her teammates call her a nigger? Do you know that? Why do we not know that, US rowing? Do you know about what happened when, there's so many examples, there's so many things. Do you know that 7 of US rowing coaches have been stopped walking down to awards dock at either national, states, or worlds because people couldn't believe that we could be a head coach? Why are we not sharing this history? Why are we not educating? Because I think a lot of you out there may actually get it. And I'm sorry if some people feel like I'm attacking rowing, but I'm talking in this one family. I'm talking as a rowing coach, as a rower, as someone who feels that we have a platform and we have an organization that is to protect and take care of our sport. I don't give a damn about all the other things, so stop diverting it to being, well, out there in the whole big world. I'm talking about this group. And so my challenge and my disappointment is in that within this organization, I have not seen a statement from US Rowing. I have not seen a statement from US Para Rowing. I have not seen anything that has said, this is wrong, and we are not going to accept that. And this type of involvement is not a part of what we do. Because I know it's a part of what a lot of people truly believe. I mean, let's not, act like everybody's all on the same page. But we all deserve to be protected, and I don't feel protected. And so I want to, thank you, Alex. Thank you. I have felt protected by Finish Line these last couple of days, just because of the actions, just because of this. So don't get them confused, because they're not the same.
I'm trying to come with words, and I feel very uncomfortable. And these are the things that need to happen. We need to show the emotions and how it affects individuals for us to make a change. And I really hope a lot of people see this and understand it. And as a leader of a company, I got to tell you, I'm at a loss. I don't know what can be done. I want to be told what to do. and hearing this from you, Patrick, I had no idea some of these things were going on. And we're going to do everything that we can from where we stand to fix this. But Barry, I want you to talk a little bit, if you don't mind. I mean, you've been in sport a very long time. You are the co-founder of AWL, which doesn't have a great voice. I mean, it's an area that needs a bigger voice. Talk to me about how you're feeling about listening to Patrick, because Patrick, you are a major leader at the AWL. You have been supporting that group for a very long time. Perry, I'd like to hear your point.
Yeah. So just to clarify, I'm not really involved in rowing as an athlete or a coach. This has really been Patrick. We are the national governing body for athletes with intellectual impairment who want to compete at mainstream and an elite para level. Patrick, as usual, came to us at first and said he was dissatisfied with a club he was involved with that wouldn't allow athletes with intellectual impairment to actually be part of their para rowing program. And so he wanted to start a para rowing program that was inclusive of everyone. And at the time, we were not doing direct service sport. We were kind of an opportunity organization, and we put together teams for various sports to travel around the world competing at Virtus events. And Patrick, really made it clear that unless we stepped up, those athletes weren't going to have a chance in rowing to be able to go, any further than, maybe ever getting off an erg or never even being able to be involved in rowing, and certainly never being seen as just a rower who happens to have autism or happens to have Down syndrome or happens to have some other intellectual disability. And so that really started us on the path of following Patrick's lead of how do we do this. I had never rowed in a boat. I'd never been to a boathouse, so that was all green space for me. But with Patrick's passion for making the sport inclusive to everybody, and this is 2010, 2011, we were less than 2 years old as an organization at that point. So, this was a lot of new things happening at one time, and Patrick really took the lead on that and made it happen and grew it in the DC area, and didn't just grow it as the Athletes Without Limits rowing program, but because of his involvement with high school rowing, now there are 4+ schools in the DC area that, and I'm not going to say have, because that's not how it works. They have the opportunity for athletes with intellectual impairment to earn their seats on boats in their high school programs. The reason that there are 4 boats at Stotesbury are because of Patrick. Those are all schools where Patrick influenced directly, either started the programs at those schools or worked with the folks at those schools who saw what he was doing to do this. So, and that's just allowed dozens and dozens of rowers in the DC area to be involved. It's brought the high school rowers in to serve as scholastic leaders and volunteers to help the special education students in school and out of school learn to row. It's brought college students, our collegiate leaders, in to work with. They come back in the summer and they volunteer with the program again to coach those athletes. Patrick's incorporated the veteran leaders program into what we do, and really, and he can talk about this so beautifully, the symbiotic relationship that develops between veterans who are healing and want to lead, but may not have the opportunity to lead that they had before their injury. They get the opportunity to lead, and our athletes with intellectual disabilities who, are physically very, very capable. They can lift and carry, but they need direction. They need guidance. They need mentorship. They need coaching. And Patrick has this vision that's just all fit together really well. And you look at our team, and I think our team really represents what it is that U.S. rowing should be, shooting for what rowing looks like. We have, the faces of the pictures. If you look on our website, on our Facebook page, on our social media, we have faces that, you know, go from as pale as mine to, you know, the full spectrum of skin colors. We have men, we have women, we have people with disabilities, we have people without disabilities, we have young, we have old. And I think one of the things we're just really proud of is, you know, that Patrick has built that. And I think that's been very conscious, and he's been very open to everybody being a part of that. So, you know, when Patrick sent me what yesterday, what the message that he got back, it was just gutting. You know, and my first thought was, this is somebody who obviously doesn't know Patrick. Why, you know, this is, you know, some troll. And then to learn this is somebody who's not just part of rowing, but is part of adaptive rowing. I mean, saying that, you know, that horrible message Patrick went out was tone deaf isn't doing that justice. That is, I'm trying to come up with the words to describe, you know, that statement, and to be so personal and directed at Patrick, at anyone. I mean, it's just, and at any time we should be, you know, very firm and very fast to condemn the statement and the person who made that statement. And so I understand that, you know, Patrick's really hurting by not feeling immediately supported. There was a roundtable Friday evening, and again, this is something that Patrick, you know, was the ignition for, by pulling coaches together and athletes together. So there was a Black coaches and rowers webinar that was hosted. I'm blanking on the name of the group that put it together.
Rowing in Color.
Rowing in Color. That's it. Thank you, Patrick. And it maxed out at 500 people on the webinar. And there were 10 leaders of color from rowing who were there on the webinar, talking about their experiences, talking about some of the things that you know, a lot of folks didn't know about the racism, big and small, that's happened in rowing and happened in sport and happens in our society, as a way to educate people about what's happening, but also talk about, you know, one of the key questions I thought was, God, with all of this abuse, with all of the racism that you've experienced in rowing, why do you still row? And every one of them, to a person, said, I love rowing. It's brought so much to my life that I'm willing to continue in the struggle to make rowing better because I believe in rowing. And I think what I hear Patrick saying, and correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, my friend, is what Patrick is looking for. I think what we're all looking for, I know what we're looking for when we talk about athletes with intellectual impairment and other adaptive and para athletes, is for rowing to care about all of us as much as all of us seem to care about rowing. Because I will tell you, we, you know, at that Stotesbury event, Patrick sent a meme that was sent out that was so derogatory, sent out by somebody who was on the media team, that was so derogatory about athletes with impairments. It showed 2 garbage cans floating down a flooded river and said, this is what the race looked like. Those were Athletes Without Limits athletes in that race, our veterans, our high school athletes, our volunteers. Like that, and only people who really care are gonna feel so wounded by that. And I think I want people to understand that when Patrick's reaction is because he cares. It's not just because he's hurt himself. It goes way beyond that. It's because he cares so deeply about the sport and about all the people who are in the sport. And we can't lose that message, that the advocacy that's going on to improve, whether it's rowing, whether it's other sports organizations, whether it's our religious institutions, whether it's our social institutions, whether it's our government, whether it's our society as a whole, people are trying to change that because they care about it, not because they don't care about it.
It's
It would
amazing
be
how
easier to walk away than to do something. Sorry.
I love how you see the passion that Patrick has for the sport. It was the first thing that I ever saw with him. And when you don't know him, you see him at a regatta. Patrick, let's be honest, like, you run around, you're smiling, you're crazy, you're loud, and you're sometimes like, it's like, wow, this guy really has something going on. But you have so much passion for the sport. You are obsessed with it. And, Barry, you put it so well. Rowing needs to care about me like I care about rowing. Like, right, that's that message that you just said. But you've known Patrick for a decade, much like I have. You see his passion in the sport and the fact that he started everything that he started. And it's amazing, Patrick. And I know you know this, and I'm sorry to bring this up, but you don't get the recognition that others would get with all that you've done. You've started and built high school programs. You've impacted the sport in such a way, but you don't get the recognition. And I think you know that. And it's probably painful to see or hear.
I just want to say, I appreciate everything you guys are saying, but I do want to make the point that if we're trying to understand, and I figure if anybody's listening still at this point, it's because you do, or you are open enough to try to understand. I figure there's many who never click on, our things. I watch on our social media, to be quite blunt, how certain individuals, certain groups, certain clubs never like anything with our club, never like anything I post, but they can like everything on theirs, never travel to come race. And so those statements are loud and clear. My reality is that my big message is the reason why, like, the situation that's happening in our country is at a head right now is because of the individual that is being brought to light, and people are recognizing that. And we can get diverted and go, oh, well, this happens a lot, or what about this, what about that? So, like, this isn't about me. This is about that right now. I'm an individual who something was directed directly to, because some of you can get that because it's personal, hoping that people will look and go, there's somebody in your boathouse. There's people in your community who are not in your boathouse. There's so many kids who have quit rowing because they haven't gotten this far, because they've just walked away from it. And that's your responsibility. I just, what I have hoped for in these last couple of days, that it wouldn't be the black rowing coaches or the black rowers who had to make this a priority, that it would be all the people out there who say they care, that it would be that an entirely white staff at US Rowing who says that you care. I'm sorry, but being real, I don't care that it was Father's Day. I don't care that you're camping. I don't care that you're coaching. I don't care about any of that, because if this was something that happened to you or yourself, you would stop and you would make it a priority. And the fact that that didn't happen speaks multitudes to me as far as what really is a priority. And that's what, for me, is we have to change that. The push to change this and to stop the bullying, to stop all the the racism, to stop all the inequalities that are in our boathouses and our clubs. It has to come from inside. I'm sorry, it has to come from the white members who are on those boards, who are sitting there going, I know this person is afraid to say something because that person funds the boat. I know right now that a certain university isn't going to do a damn thing about this individual because that person gives a lot of money to that university. I was told that yesterday. I know that there's many people who aren't speaking out on this right now because they're afraid for their standing in U.S. rowing. They want to coach a national team boat someday. They don't want to mysteriously get fired from their club. I've been through all that. I've dealt with that with many clubs. I've dealt with that, but I keep coming back and still fighting because I want, hopefully 5 years from now, for someone else to not have to worry about that in the same way, that. And so I'm not going to excuse and say that it's okay. I'm not going to say it's okay. I'm just going to say, U.S. Rowing, it is your responsibility. This is in your house. This is your club. I'm your coach. And shame on you for not doing and acting on this and representing. So until you do that, I really have nothing else to say.
Alex, I want to follow up for a second on something Patrick said, which is it's not about Patrick. And when you're a leader, as is Patrick, the light is shown on you a lot. But that message wasn't just directed to Patrick. That message was directed to a whole race of people. That was clear that that's what that person was communicating. And Patrick is the leader. Patrick's out there. He's making it known what's happening so that it can happen for other people. But I see that message as being directed at all those people who were on that panel on Friday. And there were only 10 on the panel because you can only do a webinar with that many people before people start getting lost. There were dozens of others watching who were leaders in rowing, who are people of color. There were hopefully other people who may not be in rowing who were on there, who are people in color, who are considering getting involved in rowing or looking for another sport that's going to be inclusive, or be honest about not being inclusive and then take meaningful action to be inclusive. So Patrick, is the unfortunate person that this was directed to. And he's the person.
It was a reaction,
that it's
it was a reaction to that panel, but it also wasn't isolated. It's like these statements and these feelings have been stated for a long time by this individual, and a lot of people know it, but a lot of people are saying it now, but they're saying, oh, because they don't want to risk their money, they don't want to risk their jobs. So
and it's bigger than the individual who wrote it. It's about the sentiment that's out there that's not being dealt with. It is about how these things are responded to by organizations that have power and have responsibility. We have to ask ourselves the question of, if someone else from another group, representing another group, had posted that and that response had been directed at them, would the response from those in power have been the same? No response, or very little response. Or would have been there an immediate, we condemn this? I don't know what the answer is. We can't know what the answer is, but we have to ask the question, are we treating everyone the same? I mean, we're not asking for equity. We're just asking for equality. Let's care about each other. Let's care about all the people who are part of rowing equally, because we have a responsibility to.
I want to ask something. This is so foreign to me in the way that this individual, his thoughts. I was not raised like this. Papa Dad works. I mean, my dad and I, we work together every day. He did not raise me like that. I grew up in an area that this is all foreign. So I can't relate, right? I can't relate to that. And Patrick, I can't relate to you on this. I want to know, what can we do? Like, okay, me as a business leader, what can I do right now, aside from recording these? What can I do? What can we do? I can
answer that really easily and really quickly, because it's been stated for years and years and years and years to U.S. Rowing. And I'm sorry, I'm going to keep this very specific because this is who I'm talking to right now. Is stop hiding this, stop acting like it because it's uncomfortable for people. I applaud the efforts that Patrick McKerney did as a CEO. I applaud that there's stuff on the website listing the names and the incidents that happened with those coaches that have been banned because of actions they did. We need to be able to go there and find a place where we're learning and educating. I asked very specifically a month ago for U.S. Rowing to put a tab on there where we can start seeing the history of, the African-American rowers, but it's melded into this broad, oh, inclusion page. Stop hiding from it. It's like, if so many people, if they could see and hear and some of the stories and some of the things, it would be hard, but a lot of people really want to hear that. And it can't just be like right now, so many of us, we're just bombarded with everybody wanting to know, what can we do? And we're just trying to get through each day. So what can we do? Give it a place where, as we can, we feed that. And it just comes back to history. It comes back to the broader thing. We don't have it in our history books. That's why we don't know about it. And yes, it's uncomfortable for people who don't know about it, but there's also people who don't want it to be out there because it makes them uncomfortable, because they do support it. And so I'm sorry, but the people who are keeping it from the leadership to post that stuff are some of the people who need to be looked at and don't need to have all that power. So the power from any organization is from within. And if there's that much of a fear within the leadership of U.S. Rowing, of this old boys club, and this opposing thing that is saying it's okay to discriminate against someone, it's okay because we don't want to hear their voice, then we have to look at that and say, when you hear that in your own home, then it's telling. So put it out there, talk about it, be uncomfortable. We're not comfortable when we have to share it. I'm so uncomfortable when I share, but when I hear the stuff come back, which are more people trying to justify why it wasn't what it was. And that's the biggest hurt. So I guess put it out there, put it on there, talk about it, put it on the website, and don't apologize for that, because and look at who's in leadership here and there, and get those panels and talk about it, because then we can heal. I feel better from talking now because I can get things out, but it doesn't just go away, and it doesn't just stop. This doesn't just stop because tomorrow comes. I carry this, and a lot of us carry this. So stop putting it away, U.S. Rowing, and moving on to the next thing, because it should be your first priority. Fast boats should not be your first priority right now. Taking care of those people in those boats should be your first priority.
It's a powerful statement. Barry, do you have anything else to say before we close this off?
I think one, I would just really recommend, if you haven't spent the 2 hours and or you weren't able to be one of the lucky 500 who was able to watch the Black Rowers and Coaches webinar, it's available. Sit and watch it. I've recommended it to people who aren't in rowing at all to watch it, who aren't in sport at all to watch it, because I think it was really instructive to see. You had people from somebody who's, you had coaches, you had, I think, 23 to 61-year-olds, you had Olympians, and they all expressed the same thing, and a lot of the same experiences that they had over their course of being in rowing. But again, also all express their deep love for the sport, and why they continue, to want to be part of the struggle. And there was so much to learn, to just sit and listen to 10 leaders of color, and there was no one like me there raising their hand, trying to interject, it was just sit and listen. And maybe it's a little easier to be uncomfortable in the privacy of your own home, and that's okay if that's where you start, but it is uncomfortable, but it's something we have to do. And I think continue to keep listening. We don't need to get ahead of ourselves about what the grand plan or solution is, but we do need to commit to a process. It can't be one webinar, it can't be one meeting, it can't be one subcommittee on diversion. It needs to be a process that's invested in, it needs to be a process that's tended to, and it needs to be a process where people who look like me follow and don't lead. And be supportive in whichever ways that we can, and we can all be part of the solutions. But I think we can't just have this be, one webinar, one subcommittee, one meeting, one conference. That's not going to get the sport or our society where it needs to be.
Well, us at Rowers Choice, we heard this loud and clear. Patrick, thank you so much for this today. Barry, thank you again for being part of this. And look, for everyone watching that have watched this through, this was pushed, directed by Patrick Johnson. This was his baby, his idea, and we just want to support this more and more. This is not the last time that we're going to be talking about this by any means. This is going to be carrying on as part of our process now. I've learned a great deal from these two gentlemen. I hope you have too, and thank you for being part of another discussion of Rowers Choice.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex.